So, AEW Dynamite in Huntsville, Alabama. And my God, did they really go in with the brutality in this one. Let's get into it. This is All Elite Review. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to tonight's edition of All Elite Review, where today we are going to be reviewing the episode of Dynamite from Huntsville, Alabama. Dynamite number 16. Huntsville, Alabama. And of course, this was the show where we saw the first of Cody's stipulations if he wanted to face MJF at Revolution. The 10 lashes portion. And that wasn't the only thing that was on this show tonight, or on Wednesday night. This show really upped the ante when it came to its brutality. In fact, a little bit after the show had ended, I put out a tweet that basically said, 2 words come to mind when thinking of this episode of Dynamite. Fucking brutal. And by brutal, and then I put out another tweet to follow up on it that's basically said, and by brutal, I mean that they really went in with the violence and blood tonight. Probably the most we've seen on Dynamite to date. And it was. I mean, they really went in with it as far as the violence and brutality. It certainly seemed to help in the Wednesday Night Wars. We're going to go ahead and get that out of the way. So, for those of you keeping score at home, this week, in the Wednesday Night Wars, AEW Dynamite beat out NXT yet again. So that is when it comes to equal head-to-head matchups, that is 5 in a row for AEW, which puts the overall score at AEW leading 13-3-1. Now, to NXT's credit, they stayed pretty pat. I mean, it was pretty even. It's been pretty even Steven for them. They've been hovering around $750,000 to $775,000 pretty much in all the episodes this year. Whereas AEW has been kind of fluctuating. Last week they had like 820-some-odd-thousand people, but this week they had over 900,000 people, 922,000 I believe it was, and that's an increase of 100,000 people from the previous week. That's a lot of fucking people. So it looks like AEW has found its kind of baseline number, so to speak. It's right around 900 grand, it seems like. Still trying to find that final push to get it over 1 million. Maybe after Revolution. Maybe the Dynamite after Revolution will be the one. But that'll come when it comes. And things are going to get really busy on this channel as well. Because in addition to All Elite Review and Green Gold Games, which are both been ongoing, this coming Monday we'll see the debut episode of The Fuel for the 2020 season. Because I'm going to be covering the Bush Clash. So, The Fuel's coming back on Monday. The 3-month break is almost over. Shit. But let's go ahead and get through this review. 1 second. Alright. So let's get started with this review and blaze through it. Get it done and over with. So, First match of the evening was Jon Moxley against Ortiz. Of course, Ortiz was the one that Moxley paradigm shifted into the entrance ramp on the previous episode of Dynamite, so the two were facing off one-on-one. The rest of Ortiz had his partner Santana down there with him, and the rest of the Inner Circle were up at the commentary booth. So, highlights of this match. Moxley hits a flying lariat. Ortiz with an enziguri, a DDT, and then a dead man drop, all in like one combo for a 2 count. He puts in a camel clutch, and Ortiz with a nice pop-up sit-out powerbomb. We see the pop-up powerbomb a lot, but not the sit-out variation. That was pretty cool for a 2 count. Moxley locks in a figure 4 leg lock, so that was kind of unexpected. Moxley hit a tope suicida, and then a black hole slam for a 2 count. Ortiz hits a tope con hilo, and then a flying splash for a 2 count, but Moxley comes back with a nice roaring lariat, and then hits the paradigm shift for the win after Ortiz knocked Santana off the apron, as Santana was trying to do a distraction. But Moxley sent Ortiz into him, and he hits the paradigm shift for the 3 count and the victory. Santana tries to attack Moxley after the match, but Moxley counters. Fucking phone. So, once again, let's try this again. Santana tries to attack Moxley after the match, but Moxley counters with a paradigm shift. And then Moxley takes the keys to the Ford that Jericho gave him and spikes Santana in his eye with the key. You know, similar to what Jericho had done to him. And the rest of the Inner Circle run down to the ring, and Moxley escapes through the crowd. So, eye for an eye, literally. I gave this match 3.25 stars out of 5. Good start to the show. Overall, this show was actually pretty good. Next up was a ranked match in the tag team division. You had the number 5 ranked Best Friends taking on the number 1 ranked SCU, who of course are the number 1 contenders. There's a lot of things we need to talk about in terms of all the shows coming up in the month of February, because there's a lot of good shit that's coming up in the month of February in terms of All Elite Wrestling. But we'll get to that when we get to it at the end of the review. But anyways, Best Friends versus SCU. Highlights of the match. Trent hits a knee strike on Kaz. The Best Friends with a double elbow drop on Kazarian. Scorpio Sky with a drop kick on Chuck. Kazarian with a scissors kick on Trent as he tried to dive through the ropes. Chuck hits a Shiranui on Kazarian. Sky with a slingshot cutter on Chuck. I mean, these guys were just going back and forth. Trent hits a spear on Sky after bouncing off of the security railing. Kazarian with a German suplex on Trent. Chuck with a blockbuster on Kazarian. And this is all on the outside. All 4 men are down, and then Orange Cassidy just comes over and just lays in between them and just like, yeah. I mean, Orange Cassidy is just funny as hell. Kazarian and Chucky T try to suplex each other, but Chuck manages to power him up for a Falcon Arrow for a 2 count. Kazarian hits a lung blower on Trent. SCU hits a assisted DDT on Trent for a 2 count. Trent hits the sexy Chucky knee on Kazarian. The Best Friends hit their soul food half and half suplex on Kazarian and do the hug. Go for the strong zero, but Scorpio Sky, I think, boots Chuck off the top rope, and or knocks Chucky T off the top rope, and they hit a big boot and a Yoshi tonic because Trent had Kazarian in the crunchy portion of the strong zero, but Scorpio Sky hits him with a big boot, and it turns it into a Yoshi tonic and on Trent, and they get the 3 count and the victory. So your winners, and still number 1 contenders, SCU. And then the Dark Order comes out and starts attacking everyone in the ring. Evil Uno offers Orange Cassidy a mask, but all Orange Cassidy does is just go like this and put his hands in his pockets. And the Dark Order attacks him, and then Christopher Daniels comes out, and the Dark Order backs off because they're wanting to recruit him. And the crowd actually started chanting "Fallen Angel" at this point. I mean, it wasn't super loud, but you could hear it. And there was a smattering of boos against the Dark Order, so I think they really are starting to get over as a heel group at this point. Especially now since on AEW Dark, it looks like they finally disbanded the Nightmare Collective, which is fucking nice. Speaking of AEW Dark, they showed that last week. I'm going to give you the results. This is for the Cleveland show. Jurassic Express beat Sonny Kiss and Brandon Cutler. Hikaru Shida beat Melanie Cruz, which is also afterwards. Afterwards on that, Melanie and Luther attacked Awesome Kong and severely injured her. Although there are rumors going around that Awesome Kong is actually going to film the final season of Glow on it's either Stars or HBO. I can't remember which one it was, but I think that's why they wrote her off. And then Best Friends defeated Shawn Spears and Colin Delaney. So Shawn Spears' search for a proper tag team partner continues. And that's what happened on Dark. But just want to give the results there, since I've been kind of being lackadaisical on that front for a couple weeks. But yeah, the Dark Order backs off and goes to the back, and Daniels just continues shouting, "Hey, come at me, you sons of bitches," you know, something like that. But this was actually a damn good tag match. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. Next up is our obligatory women's division match, which was actually a decent one this time. I mean, the last couple of matches have been kind of This one was actually pretty decent. Not terribly crazy, but it was still pretty solid. I mean, for the most part. It was Dr. Britt Baker, who's number 4 in the rankings, taking on Yuka Sakazaki, who's making her first appearance on Dynamite. Of course, the last time we saw her in AEW was at Fyter Fest, which was it Fyter Fest? Yeah, it was Fyter Fest, all the way back in June of the previous year. So it has been a while since we've seen the Magical Girl. But Britt Baker, of course, in full-on heel turn. And, you know, the past couple weeks, it started on kind of a low point at on Chris Jericho's Rockin' Wrestling Rager. But then it started kind of going up a little bit with the next promo in Cleveland, which was really good. But I'll tell you what, this time around, the third week, is definitely the charm. You know the saying, third time's the charm? Well, if they wanted to get her over as a heel, they certainly did it in this case, which we'll get to in a minute. But highlights of this match. Baker hit a face washer for a 2 count. Yuka with a Frankensteiner and a flying hip attack. And then she hits the Magical Girl splash to the outside. It's a nice sliding lariat for a 2 count. This match actually didn't last all that long. Baker hits a nice super kick and then a fisherman neck breaker for a 2 count. Was going to go for the lockjaw, but then Yuka reverses it into an inverted crucifix pin and gets the surprise 3 count for the victory. Everybody's surprised because it's like, oh my god, Yuka actually got the win. So she wins in her Dynamite debut. And then after the match, Baker grabs the ring bell of all fucking things and hits Yuka in the back with it. And this is where they really did Baker a service as far as her heel turn, because and I'm pretty sure this is a planned spot. She puts Yuka's mouth in the bottom rope and does a curb stomp. Now you would think, oh my god, that is extremely brutal, but the rope had some give to it. So, I mean, I know it looks brutal, but it probably, you know, it was nothing, really. And then Yuka started spitting out blood, and actually a tooth fell out. I'm pretty sure it's a fake tooth with some like fake blood inside of it. So that way she can use her tongue to kind of pop it out or something like that, and then, you know, it does you know, it looks like you're bleeding from the mouth and shit. It actually was effective because the crowd started getting all over Britt Baker for it. And then she locks in the lockjaw, which was a little bit difficult with the blood and shit. But needless to say, because Yuka is actually really well liked by the crowd, so if they wanted to get Britt Baker over as a heel, they definitely got the job done with this one, because the crowd was all over her after this one. So I think they definitely succeeded in turning in Baker's heel turn. Like I said, it was a quick match. It wasn't anything crazy special, but it was alright for the most part. I mean, Baker hit some nice moves. I mean, with her, she's basically Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You just don't know what side you're going to get with her. But in terms of her heel turn, it's definitely on the upward path. So, you know, and here's the thing. You know, a dentist gimmick, there's only so much you can do with that as a face. But there's so many things you could do as a heel. And a lot of people are saying that she is definitely a bit more interesting now that she is a heel. Now that she is a quote-unquote bad guy. So, we'll have to see where this leads to in the coming weeks. But, yeah, Britt Baker full-on heel mode now. And it worked to perfection. Whoops. As I shake the camera a little bit. And it worked to perfection in this case. I gave this match 3 stars out of 5. Not the best match in the world, but it was serviceable and it was alright. It didn't totally suck ass, I'll put it to you that way. And then next up, we have an 8-man tag match. The Elite of the Young Bucks and the tag team champions Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page against the Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brothers. There was so much shit going on in this fucking match that I was having a hard time keeping up. I mean, I have a lot of notes here. But I tell you what, there's probably some moves that I missed because they were just going so fucking fast. It wasn't even funny. But of course, when you have 8-man tags like this, you know, with 8 of the most talented tag team wrestlers, you know, in the world. Yes, I do say Kenny Omega and, you know, Hangman Page in that too. I mean, they are part of the Elite, so to speak. But there's a lot to go through in this match, I'll tell you that much. It was the best match of the night, too. Highlights of the match. Page hits a big blue on Blade. Page and Omega hit a boot and a Kotaro Crusher on Blade for a 2 count. The Young Bucks hit drop kicks on pretty much everybody. And then the Elite all do pescados on everybody. Felix does a somersault splash onto the Elite. And everyone starts fighting everywhere. I mean, they're on the fucking floor and the ring, you know, all over the fucking place. Blade hits a back suplex on Nick Jackson for a 2 count. They go to a commercial break. And then when they come back, Nick just goes fucking nuts. Hits a roundhouse kick, an arm drag, a Tierras, an X Factor, and a moonsault to the outside, which is, you know, his usual fare. Matt hits the locomotion or the light suplexes on the Lucha Brothers, which look really good. Phoenix with a corkscrew arm drag on Matt. The Lucha Brothers hit a gory bomb double stomp on Matt Jackson and Omega, which that was very intricate, to say the least. Butcher and the Blade hit a double team pendulum backbreaker. And then Omega hits a Frankensteiner on the Butcher. Page comes in with a flying lariat, a pescado, and an overhead belly-to-belly suplex. Page hits a nice Arihara moonsault to everyone on the outside. Page hits a discus lariat on Pentagon for a 2 count. Butcher and the Blade and the Lucha Brother do a bunch of double team moves to Adam Page. Pentagon hits a destroyer on Nick Jackson. Omega hits Snapdragon suplexes on pretty much everybody. Nick does a bunch of different martial arts moves on the Butcher. Matt hits a Shiranui on the Butcher. The Bucks and Lucha Brothers trading super kick parties. Omega hitting V-triggers. Pentagon hitting a sling blade on Page. Page refused to tag the Young Bucks when they wanted to tag in, because there is some dissension there. And then the Lucha Brothers hit their Zero Fear finisher on Page for the 3 count and the victory. And there is a bit more storytelling here too, because after the match, of course, the Young Bucks and Omega and Page, you know, they were basically getting into it, or in this case, Page was getting into it with the Young Bucks, and Omega was trying to play peacekeeper. But notice who got the pinfall here, and on who. It was the Lucha Brothers over Omega and Page, because Page was the one who took the pinfall. If you think back, who is the only team so far that has gotten a pinfall victory over Omega and Page since they started teaming together. The Lucha Brothers. So you would think that they would get, an opportunity to go for the tag titles. Of course, they're probably going to be put into that tag team battle royal that's taking place, I think, next week. But yeah, there's definitely some dissension between the Hangman Adam Page and the Young Bucks. And of course, extended backstage when Page was going to be interviewed, and then the Young Bucks came up to him saying, "What's your problem?" And then Matt basically says, "Oh, I think I know what the problem is," and he takes Hangman's beer away. And then from out of nowhere, Hangman grabs a pitcher full of fucking beer. And the crowd just absolutely goes nuts when he starts drinking from it. That was funny as hell. Dude, I gotta say, about this whole Hangman Page thing, I mean, after All Out, back in August, there was definitely something that was missing from Hangman Adam Page. And a lot of us at the time felt like, well, I think he might need a heel turn to kind of get things going. And I think that would have, at the time, that would have been the best thing for him. That's not the case anymore. Because now with this kind of drunken cowboy gimmick, he is suddenly one of the most over baby faces on the roster. I dare say he rivals Cody in terms of popularity as far as baby faces go. I mean, the absolute fucking transformation and the sudden rise in popularity of Hangman Adam Page. I mean, he was already, kind of a good baby face. I mean, he was getting some cheers before, but now he's fucking over as fuck. I mean, it is absolutely insane how fast he has risen in popularity. Just from this one gimmick change. I mean, he started, becoming a drunken cowboy kind of deal. And all of a sudden, he's one of the most popular wrestlers on the fucking roster. So, in my opinion, at this point, I think a heel turn for Hangman Adam Page is ill-advised. I mean, why would you want to suddenly turn him heel when all of a sudden he's just shooting, his popularity is just going shoot? I mean, at this point now I would strap a fucking rocket to him. You know what I mean? Because now at this point I think a heel turn would be ill-advised. Because, the general rule in professional wrestling is you go with the hot act. If someone is, becoming extremely popular as a babyface, you run with the hot act. You give him the ball and let him fucking run with it. Of course, right now, he's the one half of the current World Tag Team Champions. But, I mean, I think at some point, you give him another shot at the world title, and I think he can run the ball, and he can take the ball and run with it. Now, before, maybe not so much, but now would be the time to strike while the iron's hot. Because you just don't know how long it's going to last. So, I mean, if I were them, I would strike while the iron's hot. By the way, the 8-man tag match, awesome fucking match. I gave it 4.5 stars out of 5. So, in addition to, Hangman and the Young Bucks and the whole pitcher of beer segment, Omega stayed out in the ring because he was going to be interviewed by Tony Schiavone. And then he gets a word in his earpiece that there was something happening backstage. And Pac is backstage, of course, with... and Riho's back there as well, because they were actually going to... there was actually a planned contract signing between Riho and Nyla Rose, because they're going to be facing each other for the title next week. That's one of the big things that we're going to be talking about here in a little bit. But Pac basically threatens to do something to Riho unless he gets his rubber match with Omega, to which Omega says, "Alright, fine, you got your fucking match." He didn't say it like that, but you get the idea. And then Pac was like, "You didn't think I would lay my hands on a woman, did you? I may be a bastard, but I'm not a beast. She is." And at first I was like, is he talking about Riho? But no, it was actually Nyla Rose, who's the native beast, who attacks Riho from behind and then power bombs her onto the table where the contract was, and basically said, "Next week your ass is mine." So Next week we're going to get 2 championship matches. But more on that in a little bit. Because there's a lot to go over. In terms of matches. Because there's a lot of good ones coming up. So the final match on the show, it's not the main event. Because the 10 lashes thing took up the main event time slot. So we'll get to that in a minute. But the 5th and final match on the show is Super Bad Kip Sabian against Bad Boy Joey Janela. Who's the baddest one of all? This one is obviously not going to end right here because I think they're going to try to build this rivalry up a little bit. Although the crowd, I think, was not really into this because they didn't really have any reaction for Kip Sabian. They had a little bit of reaction for Joey Janela, but I don't think this rivalry has really had enough time to kind of build a little bit. Although, I don't think they're going to stop at just this one match based on the finish. But the highlights of this match, Janela goes right at Kip Sabian, basically turning it into like a hockey fight type of deal, which is what you're supposed to do in a heated rivalry. Kip hits a nice leg lariat. Janela starts hitting it with knife-edge chops. Janela with a back suplex for a 2 count. Both actually start trading spinal taps and basically no-selling them, which was kind of funny. Janela gets tripped into the stairs. Kip hits a nice missile drop kick for a 2 count. Kip hits a Gamangiri and a roll through into a penalty kick for a 2 count. Kip hits a rope hanging suplex for a 2 count. Janela with a tope suicida. Kip hits a penalty kick. Janela counters a somersault plunge to the outside into a German suplex, which looked really nice. Janela hits a nice lariat and a super kick. Kip hits a lung blower and a rising knee strike, but then Janela hits a snap Death Valley driver, only got a 2 count though. Kip hits a nice DDT. Penelope Ford gets up to the apron. Janela goes to attack Kip, but he hits Penelope Ford instead, and then Kip hits the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment and wrestling, the surprise roll-up, the schoolboy. And actually had the tights too, so typical heel move. And got the 3 count for the victory. So even though this rivalry really hasn't had a chance to really fester, this was actually a pretty decent match. I mean, some hard-hitting moves. These guys going at each other. I mean, they tried to make the best of it. But the match was actually pretty decent. I gave this one 3.5 stars out of 5. And then afterwards, and of course the Young Bucks confront Paige. This was, I kind of, jumped the gun a little bit because the Young Bucks and Paige confrontation didn't come until after this match, but you get the general idea. Backstage, Santana was going to be interviewed, but Y2J got mad. He's like, why would, Moxley try to, attack someone like this and try to end his career? Yeah, you're really not in much of a place to talk considering you did the same fucking thing yourself just about a month before. So yeah. And then Santana grabs the microphone and basically starts spitting fire at Moxley, basically like, I've been through a lot in 29 years, and all this other shit, and basically next week it's gonna be eye for an eye, which sounds to me like it's gonna be some kind of street fight or a hardcore match, which if that's the case, holy shit. Santana versus Moxley, basically in a no-holds-barred match, if that's truly the case. That'll be something to see, for sure. And then we get to the main event time slot, which was the 10 lashes stipulation. And I tell you what, give Cody some fucking credit here, because those were legitimate lashes. I mean, you could see all the fucking welts on his back. And he had to fucking go through 10 of those. And his storytelling capabilities they're just amazing. So MJF basically says that I'm not going to use my belt, so he basically tells Cody to give him his. After a couple of straps, basically the heels come out to basically watch from the ramp, and then basically every other lash. Someone from Cody's entourage. First it was Arn Anderson, and then his brother Dustin Rhodes comes out, and then the Young Bucks come out. And then for the 9th lash, MJF gives the belt to Wardlow, and he basically takes a running start and just cracks Cody right in the back of the head. And it looked like he was going to stay down. And MJF was like, no match! You know, basically celebrating. And then Brandy Rhodes comes out, and this is not Brandy Rhodes Nightmare Collective shit, no. This is just regular Brandy Rhodes, and basically comes down and says you just have to get through one more. Basically wills Cody back to his feet, much to the chagrin of MJF, who takes the belt and, you know, lashes him across the chest. But that was the 10 lashes, and Cody survives. And of course, the look on MJF's face basically told the whole tale, because it's like, God damn it. And then he turns around and basically kicks Cody right in the balls. And then JR was like, that little son of a bitch. And MJF and Wardlow basically take off through the crowd, because the locker room basically emptied out and tried to chase him up the fucking ramp. Or chase him out through the crowd. You know, basically like a bunch of puss asses. Which, you know, that's just the way they are. So we're one step closer to Cody versus MJF at Revolution. And that was your show from Huntsville, Alabama. A very violent and brutal show. I mean, that 10 lash segment in the main event time slot, it really played on the emotions for sure. But in regards to MJF and Cody's match at Revolution, this rivalry may be the hottest rivalry in wrestling right now, as far as, you know, North American wrestling. This is the type of program that is just too goddamn good right now to just end at Revolution. You know, this is the type of program you could possibly extend all the way to Double or Nothing, which is AEW's marquee event. Basically, their WrestleMania. So, how could you make it to where neither Cody nor MJF take a devastating loss at Revolution? I do have a possible solution, and this would get even more heat on MJF. Remember, there has not been a single disqualification in All Elite Wrestling so far. Through all the pay-per-view events and through all the AEW Dynamites and AEW Darks, we have not had one disqualification. Of course, we see that shit all the time in WWE, and it's gotten to the point where we've seen it so many times that it just has no meaning whatsoever. But, you know, people have been complaining about, well, AEW doesn't ever, you know, just do disqualification finishes and shit like that. That could work to their advantage here, because if they keep it that way all the way through to Revolution, then just popping the first ever disqualification out of nowhere, that would shock the fuck out of everybody. And also, if you do it in the MJF Cody match, where MJF basically what would happen is MJF, you notice how on 2 occasions now, MJF has basically penalty kicked Cody right in the balls. How about you do that in the match, right in front of the referee? When MJF realizes that he's probably not going to beat Cody, you basically have him rear up and just penalty kick Cody right in the balls, right in front of the referee, which would force the disqualification. Oh my god, the amount of fucking heat that MJF would get from that. Whew. You would need a fucking fire extinguisher to put that heat out. I'll tell you that much. Because the bottom line is, this is just too good of a program right now for it to just end at Revolution. This is the kind of program I think you could extend all the way to AEW's marquee event, Double or Nothing, in May. And that would be the perfect place to finally blow off this feud. And it would be, you know, a feud that has been 6 months in the making, if you make it all the way to Double or Nothing. So that's how I feel about that. But as far as overall show rating, this was a damn good show. A lot better than the previous week. They really went in with the brutality on this one, and I think it helped them big time. as far as the ratings are concerned, bringing back 100,000 people from the previous week. This show is damn good. I give it a solid, very solid 8.5 out of 10. Damn good show. Keep this up. And there's good reason to believe that they could keep it up, because the next 3 Dynamites, then Revolution, is going to be just off the chains crazy. Especially the next 3 Dynamites. 1 second here. I'm trying to remember which show was next week. But we'll find out here in a second. Austin, Texas is the next show. And there's going to be not 1, but 2 championship matches next week. Next week, the AEW Tag Team Championships are going to be on the line when STU exercises their rematch clause against Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega. So that'll be interesting to see. And then also, we're going to get another rematch of sorts. Of course, this was also the same match we saw in the inaugural Women's Championship match all the way back in the first episode of AEW Dynamite. Riho defending the title against Nyla Rose. So that's basically 2 big championship matches. And then, of course, also Santana and Moxley in an eye for an eye match. So that's 3 big matches next week already that we know about. And then the next show after that is Atlanta. That's a big wrestling town. And, of course, that's also going to be an historic event, because I'm pretty sure the main event for that match is going to be the first ever steel cage match with Cody taking on Wardlow in his second stipulation of the 3 that MJF has laid down. Now, I'm not exactly sure if Cody has to just compete in the steel cage match with Wardlow, or if he has to beat Wardlow. That wasn't really made clear, so it would be nice to have some clarification into that. And then the go-home show is in Kansas City. Of course, Kansas City, Missouri, of course, celebrating a Super Bowl victory over the San Francisco 49ers, their first one in 50 years. So that show is probably going to be popping, especially considering that I think the main event for that match will be the rubber match between Pac and Kenny Omega. In another first, a 30-minute Iron Man match. Pac and Kenny Omega in an Iron Man match? Take my fucking money. And then, of course, on February 29th, the next show after Kansas City is, of course, AEW Revolution. And if the past couple of pay-per-views where we've, had to pay the $50, Double or Nothing, All Out, and Full Gear are any indication, Revolution is going to kick ass. So the month of February is looking really fucking good for AEW. And it's going to be a lot to look forward to here this month. Especially since they got 3 more weeks until Revolution. They got a lot of shit that they're going to be going through. Next week is the 2 championship matches. And then you have Cody taking on Wardlow in Atlanta in the steel cage match. Kansas City, you have Pac and Kenny Omega in a 30-minute Iron Man match. And that's probably going to be a fucking 5-star right there. So, and that's on the fucking go-home show, So, yeah, the month of February, I think it's going to kick ass as far as All Elite Wrestling is concerned. Because there's so much good shit that's coming up. Yes, Vince McMahon, it's such good shit! But yeah, but that's basically true. There's so much good shit that's going to be coming in the month of February. Cannot fucking wait. Anywho, that is going to do it for tonight's review. Thank you very much for watching. Here are my update rankings for all 3 divisions. And until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Bye.
You better like and subscribe or face the consequences. You have been warned.